So today we're going to be putting a new clutch in this 1980 Dodge Power Wagon W200 V8 318 4x4 with the manual 4-speed. And the reason we are here at this point doing this today is a quick little recap. Is this truck was a fly-in drive, or it was supposed to be. I flew to Colorado to drive this thing 800 miles back after it hasn't ran since 2001. But 3 days into working on it, I figured out that the clutch was completely toast. It wouldn't even pull itself in first or second gear on a flat surface. Revved up. Still in first gear, hitting the gas. So I had to trailer it 800 miles back on a U-Haul back to Tucson, Arizona. But I couldn't just let it stop there. We have to get this thing roadworthy. I mean, it's so close. The engine runs like a top. And a lot of people said, well, did you try adjusting the clutch out? Why didn't he adjust the clutch out? What's he doing? Does he even know what he's talking about? Here's your clutch fork. You can see this threaded rod has an adjustment on it. You can adjust it in or out. So this adjustment goes to your pedal. This arm goes up to your pedal and whatnot. And when you press it, it pushes your throwout bearing right there with the clip on it. It presses it into the fingers of the clutch. It's like a big spring washer thing. And when you press it in, it will disengage, and when you let it out, it will engage. So if you notice, the throwout bearing is not even touching the fingers, so the clutch is as engaged as it can ever possibly be. It cannot be physically more engaged than this, and it's still slipping. All that adjustment would do is adjust the slop out of your pedal, right? It would push this a little bit closer to your clutch. So the adjustment that people thought in the comments about, well, adjust the clutch and it'll stop the slip. There is no slip adjustment. It does not exist on this truck. Impossible. It's not real. But what's crazy is I can still see clutch material right here. So I don't understand why it's slipping, but it sure is, because it won't pull itself in first gear. So I think I also said somewhere in the last video that, you know, I would pull the engine to do the clutch. And I got a lot of comments that said, well, why don't you pull the transmission? Well, typically you do pull the transmission, but this is a 4x4, which really complicates things. You know, what's the lesser of the two evils? To take the motor out to do the clutch, or to take the tranny out to do the clutch? Because it's not just the tranny. You have all this crazy tranny mount for the 4x4, you know, this death plate under here, all the transmission mount, you have the transfer case. Taking this transmission out with all this 4x4 stuff, with how weirdly it's shaped and how heavy it is, and getting underneath here and doing it, like, I mean, there's just a lot to digest here. There's a lot going on under here to deal with. Regardless of which way you do it, you're going to have to take the bell housing bolts out either way. So should I take the bell housing bolts out and then deal with all that chaos going on underneath? Or do I take the bell housing bolts out and then everything can be done up top here? The two motor mount bolts, all the radiator stuff, some connectors, and take the engine out. And also, before we dig into this, you know, I didn't know a lot of information on this truck specifically. I knew it was a 1980 Dodge, it was a 4x4, it was a manual, it had a 318 in it, but like, I didn't know the specifics of the differentials. I didn't know what kind of transmission, transfer case, any of that stuff. So I did some looking around, and I think I got it figured out. So the front differential, I believe, is a Dana 44, because you can see right there, 44, and it has 354 gears. You see that tag right there at the bottom, 3.54. So we got 354 gears and a Dana 44 up front. But I finally found this tag, and this is an NP435, which I've read good things about online. It was made, looks like it was made on the 20th day of 1979, the first month, maybe? January 20th, 79. Kind of a weird way to write a date, but that's definitely 79 because this truck is a 1980. And coming back to the transfer case, I had to clean this off. It was completely, you know, full of filth. I couldn't even read anything. I didn't even know if this was the data tag. I only figured it out after I started cleaning it. But this says new process gear, NP208. It's hard to read the actual numbers on there maybe, but you can see it's a model 208D 11 of 79. So this was also made in 1979. NP208D, meaning that this is an aluminum transfer case with a chain drive, I believe, which technically I've read online makes this the weakest version, because the other NPs had gear driven instead of chain driven, which I would agree with that. I would say chain driven is pretty strong, you know, I mean, because They used chains for decades. Cars for timing gears, they use chains forever. So chains are pretty durable, but yes, gear driven would be a little more durable, but I don't know, it doesn't really concern me too much. So I believe this to be a Dana 60, and I also measured the rear diff cover, which would, it's like 11 1/4 long by 12 inches high. So I believe this is a Dana 60. I was looking for some tags. I was scraping right here to find some tags to see what the gear ratio is. I don't know, but if the front is 354, the rear has to be close to that to match up with the whole 4x4 system. So I'm assuming this is in the 3s somewhere. This is a full floater rear axle, meaning you can take these bolts out and pull the axle right out without taking the drum or the brakes or even the tire off. And a lot of people really dig that setup for 4x4s because, you know, for various reasons, but if your axle breaks or whatever, you can pull it out and drive on the other axle. I guess we can start anywhere. It all needs to be done, so we'll just start draining the coolant. If this petcock works. Absolutely nothing coming out. There it is. We'll just let that go and do something else. Now I'm undoing the power steering lines that go to the box. It's a little easier to get to them than it is the pump. Alright, there's one, and it's gonna start leaking some. Yeah, I got some rags under there. See, this was during the time when they were switching, you know, everything in America used to be standard. Quarter, 5/8, whatever. And then they started going to metric, but they had this transitional period, like this truck's 1980, where half of it was metric, half of it was standard. So all the bolts to take the rad out were 3/8 and 7/16, and my line wrenches, which are standard, don't fit the power steering lines, and it's an 18 millimeter. All right. Most of it now is underneath work, unbolting the bell housing from the engine, unbolting the exhaust, undoing the motor mounts. I'll probably get the motor out today and get a good look at that clutch, but I don't know, man, that clutch just doesn't look like it's wore out. See that? I mean, there's a lot of clutch material on that clutch. It's just kind of weird to me that it's slipping so dang bad. See that? Does that clutch look worn to you? Doesn't look worn to me. I mean, I don't know, man. It's just confusing why it's slipping so bad. It just doesn't make any sense because, you know, I should be seeing nothing. But there's still some meat on there, so I don't know. I mean, there's some stuff that fell out on the ground, but like not a ton. You know, like maybe some of the dirt or mouse house or something was stopping it from grabbing, but it just doesn't seem like enough to make it slip. And the pedal was engaging in the middle where it should be, not at the top. So Dad's undoing the fan clutch right now, taking this off so we can have some more clearance to get the engine out. I've taken the motor mount nuts off, I've taken the exhaust flanges off of the manifolds, I've unbolted the bell housing from the engine. Not much more to take off. I've done all the electrical connections, and I'm sure we'll find out what we didn't disconnect when we start yanking on this thing. So I'm trying to find a spot to put the chain, and then once we get the chain going, then I'll get the tractor over here. Got to put some air in the tires, and then we can pull it out.
You unhook the power steering hoses?
Yeah, power steering hoses are unhooked.
Nice day.
Yeah, it's a nice day. Real nice day.
Haven't had a decent day in 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. It's mid-October. It's October 21st right now, and it's been getting into the 90s.
90s? 100?
Yeah, it's been actually reaching 100 up into mid-October, so it's ridiculous. I think that tire ain't even gonna air up long enough to do this job. Well, usually this thing holds air long enough. That tire's not the problem, even though it's flat. It's really this one. This one has been going low, since we got it, but it's just, at this point, air was rushing out of it faster than I could put it in. This thing is completely done, so unfortunately this tractor's pretty much useless right now. So Dad's finishing up putting our engine plate on there, and a cool piece of information on that plate is I've been using that all my life, and it just looks homemade. I didn't know nothing about it. And then one day Dad enlightened me and said that was his dad's, and that whenever an engine would come into his shop, my grandfather's shop, he would drill holes in that, whatever pattern the intake was, so no matter what engine came in, it would always fit. And there we go, we used it again. We just
60s at the Chevrolet dealership.
In the 60s at the Chevrolet dealership
in California.
That's when your dad was making this plate?
Mm-hmm. 60s. Never had to drill another set of holes, and I've had it for 35 years.
Pretty cool little piece of equipment. Now, if you go online, they sell stuff like this, but this right here,
not back in the 60s.
Yeah, they didn't sell stuff like that back in the 60s. That's a good old piece of American-made ingenuity right there.
I don't know, man. That's far enough. I mean, if your motor mounts are done up here, I mean, you should start being able to wiggle it forward. You're cocked now in there. You need to come down a little bit.
There was a bolt on the bell housing that I missed. So.
Boy, it's getting freaking dark, man. Can't see nothing.
So late last night, I got the engine out, I got the clutch out and everything, and before I called it quits, I took a look at everything, and as I suspected, you know, the clutch doesn't look, you know, worn out. Usually it'll wear down to the rivets, down to the metal, and, you know, cause a bunch of problems, score up the mating surfaces. But that is not the case here, and I could see that before I pulled it out, but I was just so confused that you know what I mean? So anyway, taking a look over here at the you know, the pressure plate and the diaphragm and all the fingers and stuff, you know, everything looks, you know, okay, until you look in here. If you can see that, see all that dirt and crud and debris. So what happened is those mice got in here somehow and filled this with so much dirt. It's pushing on this diaphragm, which is essentially releasing the clutch. Because if none of this dirt was here, these fingers could go back more and push this pressure plate against the clutch further. When the fingers go this way, it pushes that plate forward, engages the clutch. And when this diaphragm is pushed this way, it pulls the pressure plate back and it disengages the clutch. So what they've done is by putting all this dirt in here, they've permanently pushed this diaphragm forward just enough to make the clutch slip forever. So I'm about to pressure wash it, but before I do that, I'm just gonna go ahead and replace all these freeze plugs, because you can see, you know, they're starting to weep. You know, they're close to giving, you can tell. And that one looks pretty good, but what happens is they rust from the inside out. So you'll look at them on the outside, they'll look beautiful, but you'll shove a screwdriver right through them. Now, some people use Purple Power or stuff meant for engines, but it's kind of expensive, and oven cleaner is pretty cheap and it works pretty good. So it's this stuff right here. I just get it at the dollar store. Oven cleaner or Oven Bright or whatever, and soak it down real good, let it sit for a little bit, and then finish up cleaning it. So I took these up to the parts store. I had them order an 11-inch clutch, but when I got there to look at the clutch, to compare them and everything, the clutch was the same size, so they're both 11-inch clutches, and then the pressure plate housing, the bolt pattern matched up. So I compared the two, all these bolts matched up, everything looked kosher until I started looking at the fingers, the diaphragm fingers. And if you look at this one, it's flat. They don't even come above the casing. And I'll show a picture of the other one. The fingers are totally different shape. They curve up. They go like way high. I also compared the clutches, not only the diameter, but, you know, side by side, you know, because this is what's important, the material. So this one had an indistinguishable amount of material on it compared to the new one. So what I'm going to do is, I didn't buy it because maybe those fingers would have worked, maybe they wouldn't have, but I don't even want to take that chance. I want it to look the exact same, because I'm not putting this together and then having it not work, you know, because I'm going to just hope and wing it and maybe it works. No. And it'll save me about 160 bucks. I'd rather have that money in my pocket. See them fingers going down? There we go. Yeah. Bet you've never seen that before. I've never seen that before. Yeah, it is full.
Ready? Watch your dries. Dries.
Oh yeah, look at that. Those fingers weren't even coming above this. I'll show you here. You can see those fingers now coming up above the case.
Hey, can you tell me if you have a set of spark plug wires for a 1977 Corvette? That's it.
It's not really full of as much crap as I thought there'd be. It's really not that bad.
Before we put that motor in there, we're going to take and jack that tranny case up as high as we can get it
Okay.
in order to get the motor to go in there, because right now it's so low that it's going to wind up hitting them.
Like it's gonna bind?
Yeah. We want a straight shot. Yeah, the only other thing is sometimes they'll put like a little dowel pin. You slip them on the dowel pin, but
Oh, the pressure plate?
yeah, but I don't see no dowel pin.
I just didn't know if it had to go on a certain way for balancing.
You just do this, boom, 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 boom. You skip around. That's far enough. No. Boom, boom, boom.
Want to push it in? There you go.
That's too far. Well, Slow down, go back a little bit.
Now it'd be going forwards.
There you go. Jack up the very front of the motor just a hair.
Jack it up like the strap.
With the
strap.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Now, kind of, you.
I can tell we're kind of crooked.
No, you're not. I'm looking at it.
Okay. So
you're just about getting ready to start on. Push tension on the jack. It might actually start.
Like
and your motor's twisted.
Push it in, jack it up.
Yeah, push the cherry picker in with some tension on it. Yeah, there you go. Now, okay.
All right, go ahead.
Coming down.
Okay, hold on. Let me look at the other side. Yeah. We got the motor in. It was a real bear getting it in. It's almost dark now, but we had to take the motor back out because the flywheel, I mean, I don't know, I've never seen this before, but the flywheel was hitting both sides of the bell housing. We could not get this motor in. I got it out somehow the other night, but I was yanking on it pretty heavy. But we had to take the motor back out, take the bell housing off. There's 4 bolts, put the bell housing on the motor, and then put the motor back in. And we just got it in after, I don't know, however many hours later. But it's just setting in there, so now it's just a game of hooking everything back up. So I gotta put the motor mount nuts on, hook up the throttle linkages, hook up, you know, everything else, put the radiator in, put the fan in, all that stuff. So tomorrow I think that's where I'm gonna pick it up. Yeah. So it's a few days later. I saved you guys the boring details of me putting all this together. It's pretty much just a bunch of grunt work. The carburetor, all the electrical stuff over here, the alternator wires, the ignition wires, the coil, the resistors, all that stuff. Hooked up the radiator, the hoses, the fan. So this thing is pretty much ready to start. Huh. Oh, it's probably got some exhaust leaks. Plus the power steering pump is totally dry. I should fill that. Must not be getting fuel. Spitting fuel right out the main fuel hose there. Yeah, sure enough. Reverse, too high. Oh wow. Oh yeah, I felt it, Purdy. That was it, buddy. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it pulls like a bear. Watch. Yeah, just like that, night and day.
Ready?
Yeah.
Oh, this one don't have it.
Hold on. There you go.
Good.
Put it right where it was, I guess. Look okay?
My side looking good, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just go ahead and tighten it up there.
Brand new grinder. Gonna go down that way?
I want to put gas in that tank.
Oh.
Yeah, now it's fine. Might need to adjust that throwout bearing back a little more.
Yeah, you need a little bit more, I think. Needs to be a hair bit tighter.
Oh, like closer to the fingers?
Yeah.
It was smoking because the battery fell down and got against the exhaust manifold and it burned a hole in it, so gonna have to get another battery. Sorry, buddy. Well, we figured out why the truck would not drive from Colorado to Tucson, and that's because there was a rat's nest buried so deep inside the clutch that I couldn't even see it. What's crazy is in Colorado, before I left, you know, when I was trying to figure out why the clutch was slipping, I pulled the pan, the pan that covers the flywheel and the clutch. I didn't even see any debris down in the bottom. It was totally clean. I mean, you know, there was no evidence that they'd even gotten in there because there's two plates that cover it. There's no way for them to get in there, but apparently they did. I mean, U-hauling it back cost me quite a bit, you know, and if I would have caught it, I could have saved that money, but I've never heard of that happening. Usually there's evidence where those mice have been. It totally didn't even cross my mind that they had been able to bury enough dirt and nest in a clutch to push the fingers forward, because it takes a lot of force, remember, to push those fingers forward. It's not just, you know, hand tight. I mean, you really got to put some force behind it. And the fact that they could do that never entered my mind. It totally went over my head. I just, you know, that one got, I mean, that totally got by me. I'll be completely honest, that totally got by me. I mean, now I will know forever in the future to look for that, but I will probably never run into that problem again. You know what I mean? Once you know to look for something, you'll never run into that same problem twice. So it is what it is, but there's still more to do on this truck. We still are running the auxiliary tank in the bed, so we need to drop the tank out, see what's in the tank, get the tank emptied, so we can actually, you know, use the factory tank instead of using the auxiliary tank. Also, none of my gauges work. We got to get in there and see why none of the gauges are working. I'd like to put a front windshield in it because the front windshield is cracked in 10 different spots. So there's a lot to do to this truck before I feel it would be, you know, like ready for someone else, like road worthy, you know, get in it, drive it, everything works and go. But what did you guys think about the drone shots? Those were pretty cool. Leave your feedback in the comments about that. Been playing around with that new toy, trying to incorporate that more into the channel. I will say it does add an extra dimension to the quality of the content. I think it makes it look so much better. Like, you know, it just levels it up a little bit, you know what I mean? And I'm totally stoked to have it. I think it came out really awesome. And if you want to support the channel, make sure you check out channel memberships. I don't have any merch yet, but I do have 2 different tiers of channel memberships that you can check out, and there's some cool perks in there that you guys might like for those of you who really enjoy the content. And always make sure you're subscribed. More than half the people that view these videos are not subscribed. They're returning viewers, but they're not subscribers. So make sure you subscribe. I put a lot of work and effort into this content. It's free to you to do, and it helps me out tremendously. Dad and me always appreciate your guys' views, and everybody who's a loyal supporter and who watches us continually. We can't be more grateful. We really do thank you guys, and we will see you in the next one.